Welcome to Summer Seminar. I'm so glad that you could join us today. My name is Sara and I teach first grade at Pensacola Christian Academy. I'm excited to be able to look at activity time with you today. Engage, build, learn. Now you might be thinking, what is activity time? When does it take place? What exactly happens during activity time? Well, during activity time, it is 25 minutes at the end of the day, and it allows students to look at things that are helpful and fun with their teacher. This allows for 1 day of art, 1 day of music, and 3 days for history, science, and health. Think back to a teacher in your life that made a big impact on you. Maybe it was an elementary teacher who made every lesson exciting and fun. You're probably thinking of that teacher right now, one who made every single subject active and engaging for you. Well, today we'll not only be looking at different ways that you can make your activity lessons fun and engaging for your students, but I'll give you ideas and examples that you can incorporate into your own lessons to bring excitement to activity time. First of all, we'll take a look at science. Science is such a great subject for you to be able to look at with your first graders and second graders. This is such an important time in their life for you to teach them exactly that God created everything in just 6 days. It gives your students an opportunity to connect all that they see to the Creator. The Bible says in Colossians 1:16, "For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible." This allows your students to be able to look at the world around them and recognize things that they're learning in science time in your classroom. It allows your students to connect things that you taught them from the day at school when they go home and they're outside in the evenings. Students are able to learn more specifically about different types of animals, plants, and planets that God created for us to enjoy. Now, science time is only 8 weeks, so this gives your students a short glimpse of different things that they will learn in science. It's not the entire year or even the entire semester, but this really gives your first and second graders a foundation that they need to build on later on when they have science class for an entire school year. Students are able to stay engaged and enjoy the subject for just a short amount of time. You might be thinking, how can I make my science class exciting? What experiments can I do to captivate my students' attention? Well, there are many activities and experiments to keep your students engaged during this science time. There are so many things that you may do in your science class that will show your students science coming to life right before their eyes. These demonstrations not only help make your science class fun, but they also keep your students engaged throughout the science time. Now, there are many resources, as we know, that we have right at our fingertips today. There are different teacher groups and even the curriculum that give you ideas for experiments and demonstrations you can do with your classroom. Now, I always like to say creative teaching produces creative learning. If you're creative and you're excited, you will be able to sell any topic that you talk about to your students. They will be so excited and engaged and right there with you because they want to see what you're going to do with the experiment or demonstration that you have in class. Now, you might be thinking, I am not a creative person. I have absolutely no clue how to make my class exciting and fun for my students. Well, I have some ideas that I would like to share with you today that I've done in my classroom or ideas that I've seen other teachers do. One of the first things that would be easy for you to bring to your class to do with your students is a class plant. Something so simple, and this shows your students science coming to life right before them in the classroom. They're able to watch this plant every single day grow the way that God made it to. This also is a good time to teach your students responsibility, showing your students the responsibility and care that goes into taking care of this plant. Teach your students that this plant needs water. This plant needs direct sunlight. Have someone be responsible for taking that plant outside maybe at recess time every day. So not only are they learning from their textbook, but they're also learning and building those character skills of responsibility. Another thing that I haven't personally done in my classroom, but I've seen other teachers do, is a butterfly life cycle. I know that there are many places, teacher stores, different places that you're able to purchase butterfly houses. This is so neat for the students because they're able to see the different stages of the butterfly, from the pupa to the larva to the caterpillar, and then ultimately watching that butterfly transform to the beautiful creature that God intended for it to be. This is a glimpse that your students get to see firsthand of God's creation right inside of their classroom. They will be so excited every day to come to school and to see which stage that butterfly has gone into. Another thing that you might be wanting to do with your class is just simple science experiments. Now, I'm going to be honest, every single day, you're not going to have an experiment to do with your students. Some days there might not be something that you can bring in to physically show them in the front of the classroom, but that doesn't mean that that lesson still can't be fun and engaging for those students at the same time. Making that lesson stand out to your students requires some extra work. It does. But if you put in that extra work, your students will be so excited to be able to come to your class and to have that science time with you. Another thing that you could do that's simple, it's not an experiment, but decorate your classroom. I love to decorate my classroom for different holidays, different things that we're learning about. For instance, in science time, if you're talking about outer space and the planets, decorate your entire classroom with glow-in-the-dark stars. Decorate it with different planets. Teach your students about each of those planets and how God created those for us to learn about, and how they all work together to make our world what it is today. Teach your students about those things and make your classroom an exciting environment in which your students can learn all throughout the day. Ask questions. Ask your students questions. If you stand up at the front of your classroom and you teach an entire 25-minute lesson during activity time and you ask no questions, how do you know what your students learned during that time? You need to ask those questions and critical thinking questions more specifically to check your students' understanding and comprehension of the subject or the thing that you just taught them. You might be saying critical thinking questions. What are critical thinking questions? What's an example of one that I could ask? Well, critical thinking questions oftentimes are why questions, how questions. So for instance, if I'm teaching a lesson in my class on magnets, and we're taking a look in science time on magnets and things that magnets do attract and things that magnets don't attract. At the end of that lesson, I might look at my students and say, what made that magnet attract this object? How was that magnet able to pick up this object versus this object? Well, the student would simply say force. The magnet used force to pick up this object. And that would have been something that we would have learned about earlier on in the lesson, but you're checking your students' understanding. You're not saying, did the magnet pick up this? And they just answer a yes or no answer. No, they have to think critically about the question that you asked and give you an answer based on what they learned earlier in the lesson. So don't leave out those comprehension questions and critical thinking. Those are so important to check your students' understanding. Well, we've looked at some ideas and some ways to make your class exciting and fun, and some experiments and fun things that you can bring in to make that exciting. But one of the things we're going to look at is our teacher edition. The teacher edition is your friend. Don't just put it on a shelf and never bring it back out. Abeka has made it so easy for you to look at that teacher edition, glean ideas, and help bring your class up to that excitement that it needs during science time. Use it to your advantage. You might say, I'm not a creative person. Then use your teacher edition. They have done a lot of the hard work for you. They've found fun experiments. They've found fun ideas in which you can incorporate in your classroom. If you look at your teacher edition of the science book, you'll notice off to the left a tan column. In this column, it gives you specific things that you should do throughout your science time. Now, it's not hard and fast. You don't have to do it in that exact order, but it does give you a guide of how you should conduct your science class. It's very, very helpful. If you look at the top, it shows some vocabulary words that you might want to have your students read or you read all together as a class. That is a great way for you to incorporate spelling into a fun activity time. Have your students say that word. They just learned a brand new word. Have your students say the vocabulary word together. What does that word mean? Then Next, you'll see it says to read. Go ahead and have your students read those pages themselves. This will just help reinforce those good reading habits that you had them practice earlier on in the day in their reading circles or class reading. So the teacher edition of your science book is helpful. Use it to your advantage. If you'll notice underneath of the reading, it says hands-on activities. That is a demonstration that they've already picked out for you, something that you can either choose to use in their classroom or you don't have to, but they found one for you that they think would fit in with your lesson perfectly. So they have done that work for you. Use it to help you out. We've looked at many different things throughout our science portion of this session, and these are just some tips and reminders to make your science time fun for your students. Let the children read. This is a great opportunity to reinforce those good reading habits while allowing the students to get extra practice. Students learn better by seeing versus just hearing. If you have your students hold their science book and read along either with you or with the person that's reading out loud, this will help them to comprehend what they're learning for that day. They're not only hearing it by the person that's reading it, they're also seeing it in their own book. So let your students read. Reinforce those good habits. Reinforce smoothness, expression, accuracy that you practice so often throughout class reading and reading circle time. Another thing that will help your students is having them read will keep them interested in your lesson. If you have them actively doing something, then they're less likely to be mischievous or to get in trouble, but they're more likely to stay with you throughout your entire lesson of science time. It is not a lecture. Don't be tempted to get up here and lecture your students on science. They're in 1st and 2nd grade. Have them read. Have discussion about it. Ask them why they think this happened. Why did God make this like this? Have them do those hands-on activities. Even if you're not able to get every single student up to the front during your science time, have some students that are able to come to the front and do those hands-on activities and help you throughout science time. Demonstrate experiments when appropriate. Find those demonstrations, find those experiments, and bring those into your science time. Ask comprehension and critical thinking questions like we talked about. Don't go throughout an entire lesson and never one time ask your students what they learned from that lesson. Check their understanding. Make sure that they were with you and they understood the topic that you were talking about throughout your entire science time. Now let's take a look at the different science books that we use in 1st and 2nd grade. In 1st grade, they get to take a look at a science book called Exploring God's World. This book delves more specifically into bugs, mammals, and plants. So that would be a great time to incorporate a class plant. Maybe have them bring in a bug collection if you like things like that. Get your students excited about that 1st grade book. When they go to 2nd grade, they're going to take a look at Enjoying God's World. This deals more specifically with pollination and the solar system. So maybe in 2nd grade, that would be a good time for you to decorate your entire classroom like the solar system. But 2nd grade really will build on what they've learned in 1st grade. So it's so important in 1st grade teachers that they get that foundation that they need to take with them to 2nd grade as they're looking at enjoying God's world. We've looked at many ideas and many ways that you can incorporate fun into your classroom. I hope that as we were going through those things, you already started thinking of ways to make your classroom fun and exciting for this upcoming school year. But now we get to take a look and travel to Mrs. Chappell's 2nd grade class as she does a demonstration for us on force and energy. Sit back and I hope you enjoy this lesson.
I just used something to make those bubbles fly. Now, if I said I had chocolate for breakfast, you probably know exactly what I used. What did I use, Grayson?
Energy.
I did. Now, blowing it produces a lot of bubbles, but I didn't use a lot of pushing and pulling. So something we've learned about pushing or pulling an object, you have to have sometimes a little bit of it or a lot of it. Ava, what am I talking about? A lot of, Katie, can you help? Oh, she just said, what is it?
Force.
Now, if I do the bubbles this way, do you think I use more force or less force than when I just stood here and blew them? Madison, what do you think? I did because I'm using my arm, I'm using my head, and you're all watching. You have amazing self-control with all these bubbles flying everywhere. Wonderful. Well, today we're going to do some more experiments in science about force. And our first one involves some helpers. So I need Kara to come sit in the chair, please. And I need Grayson to go stand over there. Now, Kara, you have no fear, right? Because we give our fears to the Lord and He takes care of us. Now, Kara, all I'm going to do is push you in the chair over to Grayson. He's going to stop you if I have that much force to get you all the way over to Grayson. So are you ready? All right, now boys and girls, you need to decide if I'm using a lot of force or just a little bit of force to get her all the way over to Grayson. Are you ready? I gotta warm up. Here we go. I didn't make it. I got close. So, Kara, can you bring the chair back? And Grayson, I still need you over here. Now, did I use a little bit of force or a lot of force, Grace?
A little bit?
Well, I actually used, Kara,
A lot.
I did. Not as much as I needed. I didn't need to use a whole lot, but I did. You saw me. I was really pushing there at the beginning to get her started. Madison, come sit in the chair, dear. Now, before I start, do you think I need a little bit of force or a lot of force, Nina? She thinks a little bit. Now, here's the next question. Do I need more force than I used with Kara or less force, Brayden?
Less force.
Why do you think that?
Because Madison is smaller.
She is smaller, and God made us all beautifully, didn't He? We are fearfully and wonderfully made. Grayson, are you ready? Because I think I might get her farther. Here we go, Madison. Hold on. And Grayson got to catch her. Wonderful. And you can just take my chair way back by the door. Thank you. So there you see some great examples of force. But we're not finished yet, because when you take force and combine it with simple machines, you can create some wonderful tools that you can use to make your chores a whole lot easier. When Mom says, please go take the trash out, and it's really, really heavy, you could use something on wheels to make your job a whole lot easier. But today, we have something very small with wheels. We have some cars. And right here, we have what's called an inclined plane. Now, some of you think Miss Chapel's a piece of wood. Yes, it is. But as a machine, it can help things to move faster. So if I took my inclined plane, my ramp, some of you are thinking, and laid it completely flat and put the car on it, it's not going anywhere, is it? Now, if I push it, use a little bit of force, still didn't go very far. So what do you think I could do with these books and the inclined plane to help the cars go a lot faster? Fox, what could I do?
Put the wood on top of the book.
Well, why don't you come up here and help me since you thought about that? He is a good scientist. All right, I'll let you do that. Let me help you lift it. Okay? You can do it all by yourself. Wow, that's an inclined plane. Thank you, sir. You may have a seat. All right, Dylan, why don't you come and try? Do you want the race car or the truck? All right, we'll stand over here. You can put it there. Let's see if it goes down the ramp. Yes, you can push it. Now, you may go get the car. Did he use a lot of force or just a little bit of force, Nina? He did. So Nina, you come up here. Thank you. You can put it right here. Nina, do you want to do the truck or the race car? You put the truck here. Now this time I just want you to let it go. Whoa! And it crashed, but did you see she didn't have to use any force? The inclined plane did it all by itself. And now I need Fox and Wyatt. Fox, you can come back since you constructed this. Wyatt, could you come over and get the truck for me? And Fox, I'm going to let you be the race car. You two can come stand over here, side by side, and put your cars right here at the end. And don't let go yet. Now, we need to vote. Who thinks the truck is going to get off first? Raise your hand. All right, we got a few people. How do you think the race car? Wow, more hands think it's the race car. All right, when I say go, let them go. Mark, get set, go! Wow, Thank you, boys. You can have a seat. So the truck went off the ramp first, but the car went the farthest. So that's a fun experiment with the incline plane. Now, we have one more experiment to do. Dylan, if you can come move these for me, because we need a lot of room for this one. Now, the table right here, Dylan, is called the fulcrum. This is my stationary object. Right here I have a yardstick. Attached to it is a cup. This is what I want to move. Now, if I just hang a little bit of the yardstick off the end and have someone come with effort force and push down, I wonder what would happen to the cup. But do you think it would make a difference if I put more of the yardstick off of it? So, Mrs. Chapel, that's a lot of experiments. It is. Because once you try one thing, you test your theory, then you need to do another one. All right, so I need someone to come with some effort force. Layla. All right, Layla, you stand right here. We're going to count you down from 5. Remember what to do? All right, I'm going to move our fulcrum up just a bit. All right, I'm going to step over here out of your way. We're going to count down everybody from 5. Ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, Layla, come here. I would say she had a lot of effort force, didn't she? We had fun today talking about simple machines.
I hope you enjoyed going to Mrs. Chappell's class. I always love watching and hearing her teach. She's a fantastic teacher. Did you notice how she got the students' attention right away when she started blowing those bubbles? She asked the students comprehension questions and critical thinking questions. What was she using to blow the bubbles? What did it require? Energy. Did you notice how all of the students wanted to come up to the front and do her demonstration with her? They wanted to be involved in her demonstration. Did she have to go to the store and buy anything for her second demonstration? No, she just took a chair from her classroom and she was able to use that to show her students her next topic that she discussed. I hope that you gleaned many ideas from watching Mrs. Chappell in her science time in her classroom. We talked about science, and next we get to take a look at history. History is one of the second things that we're able to take a look at activity time. And for our different books in history, first grade takes a look at the book, My America, My World. I love this book because not only does it deal with things in America, but students are also able to travel all around the world and take a look at countries that they may not get to visit otherwise. So first grade specifically deals with patriotism, students' love for their country, and then we get to travel all around the world and look at those countries, like I said, that they may never get to travel to. When we go ahead and we're able to look at the other countries that they get to go to, this is a great time for you to incorporate missions into your history time. Teach your students about the verse in the Bible, Mark 16:15, that says, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." Teach your students the importance of going and being a missionary and telling others about Jesus that might never have heard it before. This is a great time to incorporate in this history time about how America was founded on the Word of God and the principles of God's Word. Teach your students those important truths and how America was founded on God and the Bible. In second grade, they get to take a look at the book, Our America. Now, Our America just deals with America, and it teaches the students about pilgrims and pioneers who have faced hardships to come to America, and talks more specifically about how America was founded. This book grows the love for America that students began to cultivate in their first grade history book. The book, My America, teaches students about famous Americans, their lives, and as well, you get to look at American landmarks that you might have traveled to, or some of your students may have even had the opportunity to look at. At the end of history time, history is about 12 weeks. And in second grade, at the end of their book, Our America, they get to take a look at some geography skills. This is so important for your students to know where places are on the map. They're never too young to start learning where different locations are on the map around America. This is just going to help them. They're not tested on any of these things in first or second grade, but when they continue to go throughout their education, throughout school, this will help. They'll be able to recall those places that you taught them about in geography skills in first and second grade. History comes to life. You might say, how can I make history exciting in my class? History is such a fun subject. It is one of my favorite subjects to teach to my students. I think that there are so many different ways and opportunities that you can make history come to life in your classroom. One thing that I think about is dressing up like a famous character. Have your students dress up like a character. If you're studying about a certain place that day, you could have your students wear the colors of the flag for that country, or have your students dress like they're from that country. Also, another thing that you might be able to do is you personally dress up as a famous character. I'm thinking of maybe if you're talking about Paul Revere. You could dress up like Paul Revere. Go around your classroom, shout, "The British are coming, the British are coming." Make it exciting for your students. Have them captivated by your history lesson and have them right there with you. Another thing that would be easy for you to bring history to life from your classroom is bring in items from places that you've been. Now you might say, I've never had an opportunity to travel to another country, but you might know someone in your church or in your school that went on a missions trip or travels for work overseas, and they might have souvenirs or items that you could bring into your classroom that they wouldn't mind sharing with you. Share those with your students. Anytime you bring something special or extra to your class, your students get so excited. So look ahead in your curriculum, know what countries or places you'll be studying about, and bring in those items to show your students from those places that your friends or you might have traveled to. This just helps your students visualize even more things from those countries and different ways that they might live that might be completely different from how we live here in America. Pictures of landmarks and locations. Don't pictures automatically just bring everything to life? And even though your students might have a picture in their history book, the pictures that you bring in or that you put up on your screen or your TV that you might have, those will help your students visualize it even more in the classroom that you're teaching in. Pictures will make your lesson exciting and engaging for your students. Some visual aids that you might be able to use in your class for history are maps. Maps are something so simple. There are so many different stores in which you can buy these from. Maps, place them around your classroom. Have them on your chalkboard. Have one on your screen if you'd rather do that instead. But have a map that you bring out every day and go over the location of the place that you're traveling to. If you're traveling to South America that day to learn about a specific country, teach your students where they're from. We live in North America, but today we get to travel all the way to South America. Show your students where you're going on the map for that day. That'll keep them excited and that'll help them to know where they're traveling in your class that day. As I said in science time, in history it's just as true. There are plenty of opportunities for your students to read. There should never be a class that goes by where one student doesn't read something from the textbook. Have your students read. Reinforce those good reading habits. The student books for history are so user-friendly. Take a look at the ones that we have on the screen. Those are so user-friendly for the students. If you'll notice that every topic that they're going to talk about on those pages is bolded and there's a star next to it. That helps them to know what they're talking about. And Abeka has done such a great job of finding pictures for each of these famous landmarks and locations that they might be looking at for that day. Personal illustrations. You might have been to some of these places that you're studying, whether it's in America or whether it's to a different country. Bring in personal stories. Have some personal stories ready to share with your students. If you share with them your experience of traveling to that famous place or that other country, they're going to be so excited. They're going to think, wow, my teacher, she traveled all the way to South America and was at a different country. Wow, my teacher got to travel to this famous American landmark. Tell them personal experiences and personal stories from where you've been and your travels there. We've looked at many different things throughout history time. I hope that you gleaned some good ideas of ways to make your history class exciting and fun for your students. Now we get to travel to my first grade classroom and take a look as me and my students travel to the country of Peru. Sit back and I hope you enjoy the trip. Today in history, boys and girls, Mrs. Fuller Fuller is so excited because we are going on a trip. Smile if you're excited to go on a trip. One thing we always have to do when we get ready to go on a trip is we need to make sure that we have our seatbelts buckled. So go ahead and buckle your seatbelts with me. Good. Now we're all ready to go on our trip. We are going to go all the way to a different continent. Look up here at our map. We are going to go all the way to the country of Peru. Say Peru. Peru. Now, Peru is on a different continent, boys and girls. Peru is on the continent of South America. Smile if you remember what continent we live on. Ireland, Santa, tell us.
North America.
We live on the continent of North America, so we get to travel all the way to South America. Go ahead and stand with me and take a look at those two words at the top of your book. Read them all together with me as a class.
Llama's wool.
Go ahead and be seated. Lincoln, come to the front for us. He's going to start reading at the top of page 74.
Peru. In Peru, many people are farmers. We like to eat some of the food that Peru's farmers grow. Farmers in Peru also grow coffee beans and cotton. I will let me
We'll check that
my
one more time.
parents. I will let my parents have the coffee.
Great job. Go ahead and be seated. Smile if you like coffee. Oh, most of you probably don't like coffee. Go ahead and put your books down. But some of you might like to smell coffee. Well, we know that in Peru, they have coffee, and they're known for growing coffee beans. Now, Mrs. Fuller brought some coffee to class today, but it's not from Peru. I just got it from the store, but I would like some boys and girls to smell the coffee that came to our class today. I was watching while Lincoln was reading, and I saw some boys and girls who were sitting so big at their seats that could smell some of my coffee. How does it smell? Is it strong? It is, isn't it? Oh, and I was looking over here and I saw Kylie. Stand Kylie. She was sitting so big. She can smell my coffee. What does it smell like? Bitter, doesn't it? But in Peru, we know that they like to grow coffee beans. We talked about something else that they like to grow in Peru. We know they have llamas. What is a llama? Smile if you know what a llama is. Scarlett?
A type of animal.
It is a type of animal, and they take the llama's wool and they like to make clothes out of it. Go ahead and rush your books for me. Well, Mrs. Fuller, I brought something from Peru that was made from llama's wool. Take a look at this sweatshirt. Smile if you have a sweatshirt. Sometimes you might even bring them to class with you, but this sweatshirt is different because your sweatshirt is probably made out of cotton. This sweatshirt is made from wool. And Ireland's gonna come to the front and she gets to take this sweatshirt and wear it all the way back to her seat. So she's gonna go ahead and put this on for us right now and show all of your friends what it looks like if they had a sweatshirt that was made from llama's wool. Now Mrs. Fuller brought some other things to the class. We didn't talk about this, but in Peru, they love to play soccer. How many of you like to play soccer? This might be a jacket that you would get to wear if you played soccer in Peru. Mrs. Fuller also has something else fun in my bag, but before I take it out, I need someone to come to the front and continue reading for us. Continue reading for us up at the front, Luke.
Llamas are very common in Peru. They carry goods to the market for the people. Many women in the villages of Peru make beautiful colored clothes. The wool that they use is from the llama.
Great job. Go ahead and be seated. Did you notice that when Luke read, he said that the wool that they like to use in Peru is made from brightly, beautifully colored clothes. So Mrs. Fuller has something up in our bag, and I need Noelle and Stevie to come to the front. They're going to hold up what Mrs. Fuller brought all the way from Peru. Take a look at this piece of fabric that they have up here. Now this is known as a scarf. Say scarf.
Scarf.
What is one thing you notice about the scarf that is from Peru, Sophia? What do you notice about it? Oh, can you help her out, Mila? What do you notice about the scarf?
It's not just black or gray or
all the colors of the rainbow, isn't it? It's very colorful. And Noelle, how does this scarf feel? It feels so soft. Thank you. Go ahead and have a seat. I hope you enjoyed being able to travel to another country with my class. Did you see how excited the students were when I told them to buckle their seatbelts? They were ready to travel all the way to South America to take a look at the country of Peru. Now, I was able to find things to bring in to make that class exciting and fun for my students. They were listening so well. It motivated them to continue to do what was right throughout history time because they wanted to come to the front and help me with those items that I had brought in. Make your class exciting and fun. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed learning about the country of Peru, and you gleaned some ideas and some ways that you can add excitement to your history class. The next thing we get to talk about is health. Now, health is a shorter time, and we only look at it for about 7 weeks. But health is such an important thing for your students to learn. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20, "What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own?" We can go all the way back to science time when we talk about how God created us in His image. Teach your students in health time that God created each of them unique and different, just the way that He wanted them to be. Teach your students that their body is a temple of God's, and they should take care of the body that God has given them. There are so many practical and applicable tips for daily living that we can look at in health time. If you look at the students page in health, you'll notice at the top, just like in history and science, there are some vocabulary words. Have your students read those vocabulary words. Discuss what they mean. They might have never heard that word before. It might be brand new to them. Teach them about that word and what it means and why it's going to be important for the topic that you're discussing that day in health class. Ask them how they could apply these good habits that you're learning in health class to their life. Again, you're bringing out critical thinking and those comprehension questions that your students need, but always ask them, how can you apply this to your life? How does this topic relate to something in your everyday work? There are 3 different topics that we get to discuss during health time in our book. We start with my health. This is so important for your students. You might think, oh, they're only 6, 7, or 8. How could this be important for them? That is really the foundation for a healthy life for your students. If you teach them ways that they can be healthy right here when they're only 6, 7, or 8, this will carry on throughout their entire life. In My Health, we look specifically at eating good foods. Which foods are good for our body, which foods are bad for our body, which foods help fuel our body with good energy. Another thing that we take a look at is exercising. Now you might think this is not a problem for kids. They love to run around outside and play, but so often today, many kids just like to stay inside on their technology, and they're missing out on exercise that their body needs. Teach your students fun exercises that they can do. Make it a game for them. Don't make exercising boring. If you go outside for recess, have some fun things that your students can play to get the exercise that their body needs each day. Talk to your students about rest. I don't know about in your personal classroom, but I know in my classroom, so often my students come in every morning and they're tired. They don't get the rest that they need. Show your students that it's so important for them to get the rest that they need every night for their bodies to be able to function as God intended for them to do. Teach your students about good posture. We could talk about this one all day, couldn't we? Sometimes I feel like a broken record every day. Sit up straight and tall, make sure your hands are in your lap, make sure you have good posture. Show your students good posture, but not just show them. Teach them why it's important to have good posture. Show them and teach them what happens when they don't have good posture, and encourage that good posture throughout the entire day of school. Those are things that we look at during My Health. This last one under My Health is pretty important as well. Taking care of their clothes. There are so many students I see in my class who come in every morning and throw their jacket on the ground and throw their book bag on the ground. Teach them to take care of the things that God has given them. Teach them that their parents work hard to provide for them, and God provides them with the clothes and the things that they have. And just like we should take care of our bodies that God has given us, we should also take care of the things that God has provided for us every single day. The next thing we look at in health is my manners. This is a big one, isn't it? So often in today's society, students aren't taught proper manners and how they should treat other people. We look specifically at my manners, manners at home, manners at school, manners at church, and manners out in public. Teach your students that they have a testimony. If they've accepted Jesus as their Savior, they have a testimony, and others are watching them. And their manners could play a big part in whether someone comes to know Jesus as their Savior. Teach your students that by having good manners, those people around them, they notice. They say, wow, something's different about them. They're so polite. They do exactly what they're told. They have good manners. Teach your students how important it is to have a good testimony. Anytime my boys and girls leave our classroom, I always say to them, be a good testimony. Show other people that you have a good testimony when you're in the hallways at school. Encourage that good manners. We look at manners at home. Teaching your students the importance of sitting up straight at the dinner table, being polite to guests that come to their house. We also take a look at manners at school, teaching your students how they should treat others in the classroom. The Bible says that we should treat other people the way we want to be treated. And so often, our students at school need to be taught this and reminded this on a daily basis to treat those others as they would want to be treated. So teach them good manners at school, good manners in your classroom. Also, good manners at church. Now, you might have some students that don't go to church, but you should have a lot of students that do go to church. And these boys and girls, they need to know how to have good manners in church. Teach them the importance of not running through church. We'll also look at the importance of sitting up straight and not whispering to their friends during church, not being a distraction to other people. We also take a look at manners in public. This deals specifically with manners in a restaurant or manners at the grocery store, all places that children should be taught to have good manners. You might be thinking, health. It doesn't quite sound as exciting or maybe even as fun as history or science, but health is very fun and very exciting. I love health time, and there are lots of fun ideas that you can use in your health class. One of the things that we love to do in our health class is build a food pyramid. You can either build this with play foods that you have in your class, you can build this with the students holding different papers of the food groups. Teach your students the 5 food groups and the food pyramid and why it's important that they have each food group as they eat. Another thing that it has in our textbook that we're able to do is animal exercises. This shows your students that exercise doesn't have to be boring. Exercise can be fun. Oftentimes for this, I'll bring in paper masks of different animals. And when we do the animal exercises, they'll wear the one that they're doing an exercise for. So whether it be a lion or a bear or a tiger, they'll wear that paper mask as they're doing those exercises, and they love that. They have so much fun in health time. Another fun thing to do for health is have posters or charts around your classroom. You could even do a chart for healthy habits. Which students do this every single day? Which students come into our classroom and hang up their coat? Which students hang up their book bag? Check those healthy habits that you're teaching in class. Inspect what you expect. If you expect your students to hang up their jackets every single day, make sure that you're going over there and checking and saying, wow, every single person gets a sticker that hung up their backpack today. Every single person gets a sticker that hung up their jacket today. Have some fun posters and charts around your classroom that talk about different things that you're taking a look at in health time. We've looked at many different things and ideas that hopefully you will incorporate in your classroom to make your health time fun. We get to travel back to my first grade classroom and take a look at a lesson on healthy foods and fueling our body with those healthy foods. Sit back and I hope you enjoy. Prepare for health class. Stand and sing with me all together. God made me.
God
girls, it is so important that we eat good foods. You might have heard your mom and dad say to you, make sure you eat your fruits, make sure you eat your vegetables, but you might not have thought, why should I eat my fruits? Why should I eat my vegetables? Well, take a look and prepare for health by taking your book and placing it in your hands in reading position. I love how Kelsey's already sitting in reading position. Go ahead and start reading for us at the top of page 6, Kinsey.
I need to get good food to play, to keep well, to think, to breathe, to keep warm, and to grow.
Great job. Go ahead and be seated. There are so many reasons that we need to eat good foods. The first one they said was to play, to keep well, to think. Go ahead and both rest in your laps, boys and girls. Take a look up here at our screen. There are 5 different food groups up on our screen that we should always remember to eat. Go ahead and say these with me all together, boys and girls. We should eat our
Vegetables, protein, whole grains, dairy,
and fruit. It is very important that we have all 5 of those food groups when we eat. Now, Mrs. Fuller brought something to class today with me. I brought 2 cars up here at the front. And these cars, they are going to have a race. Well, when you drive a car and your parents drive a car, they have to put something in the car that makes it go. What do they need to put in the car to make it run? Kylie? Gas. Oh, we're going to see why it's so important that you put gas in your car. Go ahead and come to the front for me, Timothy and Luke. They're going to help me out this morning. Timothy, which car would you like to drive today? Oh, you're going to pick the Volkswagen and you get the Hummer. Perfect. They're going to have a race with their cars. And when Mrs. Fuller says go, I want you to watch what Luke does with his car. Ready, set, go. Oh, Timothy's car kept racing, but Luke's car stopped. Why did your car stop, Luke? Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, his car stopped to get gas. Why didn't your car stop, Timothy?
Because it thought that it could win without stopping.
Oh, you thought it could win without stopping for gas, but boys and girls, Luke stopped to make sure that he refueled his car so that it could finish the race. Is Timothy's Volkswagen going to be able to finish the race, Jonathan?
No,
Stan, tell me why.
because it couldn't stop all the way, so then Luke will pass it, then he will get the trophy.
Right. The other car would get the trophy. Luke would get that. Why? Because he took care of his car. He stopped and made sure that his car had enough fuel in it. It is so important to make sure that your body has enough food to have energy. Take a look up here at my screen. If Mrs. Fuller said we get to have cookies for breakfast, would that be very smart to fuel our bodies with sugar first thing in the morning? No, it wouldn't. What if I came home for dinner and your mom said, oh, you get to have cookies for dinner? Would that be very smart to fuel your body with cookies for dinner? It wouldn't. But if we came home and your mom had a plate set up for you with all the different food groups, would that be a good dinner, Lincoln? Stand and tell me. It would. So which one would we not want to eat for dinner, class? Cookies. That's right. But if we came home and we had a dinner like this, with all of the food groups, does that look like some good fuel to put in our body? Give me a wiggly thumbs up. It does. I hope you enjoyed visiting my classroom. We had such a fun lesson on ways that we can fuel our body with good food. The students were so excited to come to the front and help with the demonstrations that we did in health time. Did you notice the cars? Oh, Luke and Timothy got so excited as they were able to take those cars around the classroom and show their other classmates the importance of fueling your body with those good foods. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope that you got some ideas that you can take back to your classroom in the fall. Some general reminders for health, science, and history. Enhance their reading skills. This should be a time that you continually let them read. I know we've talked about that several times throughout this session, but let your students read and incorporate those reading tips, the smoothness, accuracy, expression as they're reading throughout health time. It's okay to stop them and ask them to reread the sentence again more smoothly. That's just reinforcing what you've taught them earlier on in the day. Another thing that you need to be doing is encourage critical thinking. Encourage your students to think critically, not just to know a yes or no answer, but to know how this happened. Why did this happen? Make sure that they're thinking critically in your classroom. Another thing to do throughout science, history, and health time is engage with hands-on learning activities. Like I said before, you might not have an experiment or a demonstration for every single lesson, but there are several lessons throughout any of these books that you can bring in fun things and incorporate demonstrations in. Be sure to do that. Be sure to take that extra step and make that an exciting time for your students to learn. There are 2 more topics that we talk about in activity time, and they are usually only 1 day a week, like we said at the beginning of our session. The first one that we get to do in first grade, here at PCA, we are able to take a look at art on Thursdays. So Thursdays is art time, and the students know this. They know the schedule. They get so excited when we get to Thursday. They say, "Mrs. Fuller, are we having an art project today?" They want to do art. You might say, art. Why would art be an important thing to have in my classroom? Well, art promotes creativity. You might have a student in your class that's not creative, or they are creative, they just need that extra push to use their imagination. Art is such a good time for them to use the creativity and the imaginations that God has given them. This also builds fine motor skills. You might have a student that wasn't at your school for kindergarten, and their motor skills are still lacking a little. This is a good time for your students to be able to work on those fine motor skills that they need to hold their pencil correctly, to do things with their hands. Work on these fine motor skills in art time at the end of the day. This keeps students engaged and happy. When we have art on Thursdays and the students come in that morning, I always tell them, "We have art this afternoon. You're going to need this for your art project. Let's see how many students can get this item for your art project throughout the day." So the entire day, those students are working hard to get the things that they need for their art project at the end of the day. It promotes good behavior in your classroom, and it encourages your students to be excited and happy as they're doing art time. Another thing that we're able to do in our class on Fridays, and this is my all-time favorite, all of the students in my class know that Mrs. Fuller loves class singing. When we get to Friday, we have 25 minutes at the end of the day where they get to learn fun songs. So I usually have it on my iPad, and I'll play it over my speakers in my class. We'll sing fun songs. I'll have the students come to the front. Sometimes they're able to use some of the props that we have for those fun songs and sing them with their classmates. You might be thinking, class singing. How can I have fun in class singing? Well, just like I gave you an example, bring in fun props. Encourage your students to come to the front and sing with you as you're doing class singing. Class singing helps develop musical talent. Most children aren't born with musical talent and abilities. It's often taught or learned. This will help your students develop musical talent in your classroom. This also helps your students learn study skills. They're oftentimes looking at the words to the song, and this will help encourage reading and good study skills and memorization skills as they go throughout this school year during activity time. This also improves speaking and communication skills. This will help your students to use good pronunciation of words during this class singing time. Throughout our session, we have seen how we can actively engage our students throughout science, history, and health, while still making it fun and enjoyable for them. Engaging your students in class will lead to learning, which will allow them to build upon the things that they have learned in your class. I hope my challenge to you is that this session has been helpful for you. Whether you're a first-year teacher or you've taught for many, many years, I hope that this session was helpful for you and encouraged you. But my challenge for you is don't settle for mediocre. Ask God to show you every single day new ways that you can make your classroom fun and exciting for your students. And everything that you do throughout activity time, show your students the importance of giving God the glory for every single thing that they do.